Happy Christmas Eve. I hope you guys are having a great night. I know it's late, but it's getting close to time for Santa to come, and I just got all the babies laid down. So I'm going to read you guys two stories tonight, and I think Santa's close. I keep hearing his bells, so maybe before we go to bed, we'll hear the bells. And we'll hear Santa. So the first book I'm going to read, and this is a very special book, is called A Special Place for Santa, and it shows the kneeling Santa. Okay, so let's read this story. Okay, once upon a time, not very long ago, two women shoppers were talking, obviously very concerned. Buying Christmas presents for family and friends is one thing, and I'm glad to do it. But I'm afraid Santa Claus is taking over. He is causing many people to forget the real significance of Christmas. I agree. After all, it is Jesus' birthday. Now, Santa overhears a lot when he's out making his list of who's been naughty and nice. And much of what he hears goes in one ear and out the other. But this Christmas, he couldn't stop thinking about what the women had said. Even while helping the elves load his sleigh on Christmas Eve, those awful words rang in his ears. Could they possibly be right? As he went from house to house delivering toys, Santa couldn't stop worrying. Some people do forget Jesus on Christmas. Could this be his fault? Santa's last stop, as usual, was at a church that had a life-size nativity scene. Every year, Santa loved to be the first person to wish Jesus a happy birthday, and he always brought a special present for the Christ child. But this year, Santa's footsteps were slow and heavy. He opened the door at the back of the church and crept into the very last pew. His feet refused to carry him forward to the crib where the figure of the infant Jesus lay. He hid his present under the pew. He had never felt so drained. A tear rolled down his cheek. Even though children had left him cookies and milk and many loving letters, he still couldn't remember when he had felt so sad and so alone. What's wrong? Giving presents was always such a joy, Santa thought out loud. He sat back and closed his eyes, when suddenly he heard a voice calling, Santa! St. Nicholas! Santa quickly wiped his eyes. He didn't want anyone to see him crying. He looked around the church. The voice sounded familiar, but there was no one in sight. Cheer up! It's certainly not your fault that some people forget the significance of this day, the voice continued. Ever since you were born, as far off Turkey, over 300 years after my son Jesus was born, you've done far more than spread the true Christmas spirit. Santa could hardly believe his ears. God was actually talking to him, and his voice was warm and loving. He didn't sound angry at all. Don't ever forget your long and distinguished career, God continued. It all began at a very young age when you were a bishop of Myra because of your many acts of charity. Santa smiled, suddenly remembering his colorful past. Everyone called me Nicholas then, he recalled, and that's when I first discovered how great it feels to help those in need. And you certainly helped them often, God added. Remember that poor merchant who didn't have enough money to pay for weddings for his 3 daughters? You secretly threw a bag of gold into each girl's window, thinking that no one would see you. But someone did. For that good deed, you were named patron saint of young marriageable maidens. And the 3 gold balls that hang outside pawn shops to this day represent those 3 bags of gold. Santa chuckled quietly. He had forgotten that. You've always loved children, God reminded him. Among many other good deeds, you were credited with rescue wrecks. You were their patron saint as well. And I'm the patron saint of Russia, too, Santa added proudly. A big smile lit up his face. He certainly had led a busy but exciting life. Churches in many cities are named after me. My feast day, St. Nicholas Day, is December 6th, another very special day of celebrations and gift giving in many parts of the world. You are known by many names as well, God reminded Santa. From German, you are called Christkindl, which literally means Christ child. That's true, but my most popular name is Santa Claus, Santa interrupted. Some say it comes from the Dutch Sinterklaas, but I think it comes from the way the small children say Saint Nicholas or Santa Claus. Santa pulled thoughtfully at his beard and looked down at his bright red suit. Red had been his favorite color ever since he wore the red robes of the bishop, but he hadn't been so fat then. Actually, he had only had his round belly more relatively for a more relatively short time. In 1823, when his friend Clement Moore wrote the famous poem The Night Before Christmas, it depicted Santa as having a round little belly that shook when he laughed, like a bowl full of jelly. Soon many people were drawing pictures of Santa. Famous political cartoonist Thomas Nast, who had created the Republican elephant and the Democratic donkey, was one of the first to draw him with a long white beard and a round belly. Later, the Coca-Cola Company featured a jolly Santa in their Christmas time advertisements. Since then, with the help of television, magazines, and newspapers, the figure of Santa is now known everywhere. Jesus and I want to thank you for the help spreading the news about Christmas to every corner of the world, God said softly. Every year you help millions of people, young and old, show how much they love one another. Because of you, people everywhere fill their hearts with joy and love on Jesus' special day. Thank you, God, whispered Santa. He felt better than he had felt for months. He was a very special job after all. Santa jumped up. Next year, he would work even harder to fill hearts with love and joy so that they would be ready for the Christ child on Christmas morning. He could hardly wait. Morning sun streamed through the stained glass window of the church. It bathed the figure of the infant Jesus and Mary and Joseph in its bright, warm rays. Santa reached under the pew and pulled out the present he had brought for the Christ child. He knew he would have to hurry if he wanted to be the first person to wish Jesus happy birthday. He almost ran up the aisle, took off his hat, and knelt before the infant Jesus. He reverently placed his beautifully wrapped package next to the manger. It was the same present he had given Jesus every year, but now he knew for sure it was the one present Jesus wanted most of all. Inside the box were Santa's lists of the kind and loving things people, young and old, had done for one another during the year. Happy birthday, Santa whispered, and please thank your father for making a special place for me in his plan. I promise never to doubt his wisdom again. He smiled lovingly at the figure of the tiny infant. Now no one who comes to the church on Christmas and sees Santa kneeling there thinks it strange at all. They can see that there is a perfect place for Santa to be on Christmas. And some people, legend says, even insist that the babe in the manger is smiling back at Santa. The end. And forgive me, I do cry when I read this. So my last book before we go to bed is "'Twas the Night Before Christmas," and this is a tradition in my house. We read this every night, every Christmas Eve, before the children go to bed, which I've already read for my kids, and I'm going to read for your babies and you and my babies before bed, and hopefully, maybe we'll hear Santa before we go to bed. Okay. 'Twas the Night Before Christmas by Clement C. Moore. 'Twas the night before Christmas, when all through the house not a creature was stirring, not even a mouse. The stockings were hung by the chimney with care, in hopes that St. Nicholas soon would be there. The children were nestled all snug in their beds, while visions of sugar plums danced in their heads. And Mamma in her kerchief, and I in my cap, had just settled down for a long winter's nap. When out on the lawn there arose such a clatter, I sprang from the bed to see what was the matter. Away to the window I flew like a flash, tore open the shutters, and threw up the sash. Oh, I didn't show you a picture. The moon on the breast of the new fallen snow gave the luster of midday to objects below, when what should my wandering eyes should appear but a miniature sleigh and 8 tiny reindeer. With a little old driver so lively and quick, I knew in a moment it must be Saint Nick. More rapid than eagles, his coursers they came, and he whistled and shouted and called them by name. Now Dasher, now Dancer, now Prancer and Vixen, on Comet, on Cupid, on Donder and Blitzen. To the top of the porch, to the top of the wall, now dash away, dash away, dash away all. And as dry leaves before a wild hurricane fly, when they met with an obstacle mount to the sky. So up to the housetop the coursers they flew, with a sleigh full of toys, and St. Nicholas too. And then with a twinkling I heard on the roof the prancing and pawing of each little hoof. As I drew in my head and was turning around, down the chimney St. Nicholas came with a bound. He was dressed all in fur from his head to his foot, and his clothes were all tarnished with ashes and soot. A bundle of toys he had flung on his back, and he looked like a peddler just opening his pack. His eyes how they twinkled, his dimples how merry, his cheeks were like roses, his nose like a cherry. His droll little mouth was drawn up like a bow, and the beard on his chin was as white as the snow. The stump of his pipe he held tight in his teeth, and the smoke it encircled his head like a wreath. He had a broad face and a little round belly that shook when he laughed, like a bowl full of jelly. I think I hear Santa. He was chubby and plump, a right jolly old elf, and he laughed when I saw him, in spite of himself. A wink of his eye and a twist of his head soon gave me to know I had nothing to dread. I hear Santa. He spoke not a word, but went straight to his work, and filled all the stockings, then turned with a jerk. And laying a finger aside of his nose, and giving a nod, up the chimney he rose. And he sprang to his sleigh, gave his teams, gave a whistle, and away they all flew like the down of a thistle. But I heard him exclaim ere he drove out of sight, Merry Christmas to all, and to all a good night.
Merry Christmas, and have a happy New Year.
I hear Santa. Oh my guys, we gotta go to bed. I gotta go to bed because I want Santa to stop by. I love you guys, and I hope you guys have a wonderful, wonderful
All
Christmas.
little mommies and babies should be in bed.
We gotta go to bed, guys. I love you guys. Have a wonderful Christmas Eve, and I'll talk to you guys tomorrow. Have a great Christmas. Merry Christmas, everyone.